Hello, this is just Johnny from the Geek Down. I'm here at Boston Fig 2017. This is at the talks that they have. It's primarily a game developer type of event where I guess people that are involved in making video games, board games, or are aspiring to become a developer, they come to this event and they have talks and they sort of share their knowledge about what's going on. I'm sitting with Breeze of Zephyr Games,
Yep, Zephyr Workshop.
Zephyr Workshop,
Yep.
sorry. And we're here to talk about his game Aegis. Right?
Yeah. So Aegis is a combining robot strategy game. It's a board game. At Zephyr Workshop, we develop tabletop games and card games. So Aegis is like Pokemon meets Voltron. Um, you build a team of 5 robots out of the 80 or 90 we give you in the box, and it's kind of like a tactics game, like Final Fantasy Tactics, Advance Wars, Fire Emblem, but it's on a table.
Oh,
Yeah,
you just hit like a ton of games. That
exactly.
has me excited. That was great. Like, all right, so Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem. What
Yep.
was the other one that I
And
missed?
Advance Wars.
And Advance
Just
Wars.
Fire Emblem with tanks.
Yeah, Fire Emblem with tanks. All right, so let's maybe all right continue your pitch, and then I want to break down like what elements of these games you're actually bringing into yours
Hmm.
because this is a board game, not a
Yeah.
video game.
So yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to make the game. Is like a lot of tabletop tactics games when I started making Aegis were very like huge and complicated. When I had grown up playing nothing but like Fire Emblem and Advance Wars, and I just like I want things to be simple.
Yep.
Um, so I wanted to take kind of that really simplistic gameplay system from those games that I was used to, and put kind of that entry level of difficulty into a board game, so people get into it fast and affordably. And so yeah, the game is Aegis. 5 robots. You play 5 robots versus 5 robots. You play on a hex grid. You can combine your robots together on your team to make bigger and more powerful forms, like right out of like like Gurren Lagann and Power Rangers.
Yep.
So you can combine 2 robots together, 3 robots together, 4 robots together, or 5 robots together. And the game generally goes about 25-ish minutes, so it's made to be very fast paced, kind of a best 2 out of 3 style game.
For a single session, so we're
Yep.
talking a little bit longer than a typical card game, but absolutely shorter than something like Monopoly
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
or
So it's
any of those other
it's
board
definitely
games.
built would be more like the game speed of like a Magic the Gathering, as well as something like Fast and
Yep.
Furious.
Okay.
Um, you can actually blow through games pretty fast. Once you get the grip on it, it goes pretty quickly.
So, all right. So you said it's intended to have multiple gameplays in one session, one
Yep.
sit-down session. And so for board games, that's kind of a fairly big challenge. Usually, by the time everyone sort of reads through the rules, understands the board game itself and how to play it,
Mm-hmm.
they go through and they just play one session.
Mm-hmm. So Aegis's core gameplay is pretty simple. So we wanted to build it so the players could get into it really easily, and then so you learn pretty much everything about the game on the first session, and the game has a lot of replayability to it because of like the team building aspect.
Yep.
So it is a little bit like Pokemon in that way. Uh, but yeah, the generally speaking, you want to play Aegis over and over again.
Okay, so it does have that learning curve,
Yeah.
as pretty much every board game
Not
has.
a not a very big one though.
Not
Once you go through like your first turn, it's like okay, I get the core fundamentals, and then
Yep.
it's really just looking at what your cards do and what the opponent's cards do, because all the robots in the game fundamentally work the same, but they just have like different skills and abilities.
Okay.
But yeah, the core gameplay is your 5 robots. They share energy with each other, and so every turn you get like 15 or 20 points to use. Then every space you move and every dice you roll costs a point of energy. So once players like get that basic energy allocation thing down,
Yep.
it's almost the whole game. And then it's all comes down to what you want to do, what tactics you want to use. It's not about learning this dictionary-sized rulebook. It's more or less just understanding what you're doing and how to make better decisions.
Okay, so
That's very
something
important.
along the lines of Advance Wars, as you
Yeah.
said, where the energy is essentially your currency that you
Yep.
can use to deploy. I'm guessing deploy robots.
Actually, in Aegis, you start out with your 5 guys, and the game just goes from there. You combine them together, and they get destroyed. But you never actually deploy more robots in the main game mode.
Okay, so what are you spending? And uh, pause for 1 second. I'll put up the game
Mhm.
board so that
Yep.
people watching this can see. Okay,
Mhm.
so what we have is so it's, let's say it's my turn, all right,
Yep.
and I have a bunch of money or energy
Yep.
available, and this is turn one. So what would a typical first start turn one?
Mhm.
What kind of experience is that for the player?
So when you start a turn of Aegis, you look at your 5 robots. Each robot gives energy to the rest of the team, represented by little green dots on the top right of the cards. So you add those up. You have a little thing to keep track of it. So let's say you start with like 20 energy, and then you move your robots one at a time until you've moved all 5 of them. Each space you move with a robot costs a point. So you'd move your assault guy uh, 5 spaces, and that would cost you 5 energy. Then you have 15 points left, and then you would maybe attack with him and roll 2 dice to attack. Now you have 13 left, and then he would be done for the turn. You have 13 left to use across your other 4 robots. So it's kind of like just managing that every turn, and you can spend energy points to combine your robots together. And actually, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so for a round, and I don't know if you said this directly, so you take one of your robots, you spend however energy that you want,
Mm-hmm.
and then do you then pass it to another player to
Oh,
control their robot, or do you do all of your robots all in your one turn?
all of your robots, then all of their robots. But
Okay.
we do have an alternate game mode where you do 1-1-1-1-1 back and forth with your
Okay.
opponent's robots.
Is there a limit to the amount of energy you can invest in one particular robot? Let's say you want to put all 15 of your energy into having this one robot attack everything and sort of move to the front lines and be like this completely badass robot.
Some robots can definitely do that, but a lot of like the base level a lot of the base level smaller robots, yeah, they have like kind of a cap on what you can spend. You can only move them this far and use this many dice to attack. But then some of them just have like an X cost where you can put as much energy into it as you want and roll that many dice and do all that many things.
Okay, so we have a
Yeah.
lot of variety
Yeah.
in these robots. Are these robots? So it looks like it's kind of like a Stratego card piece where it's
It's a
a
standee.
stand
Yep.
with a art on a double sided. I'm assuming double sided
Yep.
cardboard that you then move along on this hex grid board.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're using standees. The game was designed to be kind of a really light war game, so the standees are kind of like stand-ins for miniatures. Because if we did miniatures, the game would be like $500. But we used in this game. Every robot in the game has a card that tells you what it does and a standee that you move around. Um, it keeps the game cost really affordable. The game is gonna go for like $50 ish,
Yep.
as to get almost everything. Um,
And so the game goes for $50. What do you mean by
We're actually working
almost
out
everything?
manufacturing numbers right now, so
Oh, okay.
it's gonna float around there. It's originally our business model for the game was you have 2 starter boxes. One's $40 and the other's $40, and there's 40 robots in each one that are all unique. We're thinking about just making it even simpler and putting all of the content in the game into one box. You get like 80, 90 robots in one box to use.
Talk.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
all right. Okay. So, and just a reminder to the people watching this, this game is still in development.
Mm-hmm.
So there, as you said, you're still working out the manufacturing costs and things like that.
Yep.
So as you're going through and tweaking these aspects, I'm guessing at this point, because I mean we do have a full-fledged game board there. I'll switch later on to show off some of the cards, but it looks
Mhm.
like you have a full-fledged game. I'm guessing at this point you're probably tweaking and balancing.
It's like we did a lot. Actually, the game is more or less we're like still doing like little touch ups and the tweaking and the balancing here and there. But right now we're putting the final panache on some of the art assets. The game's actually been built a few times now. We originally self-published the game in 2014, and then we signed on with a publisher and we built another version of it, and now we're on like kind of version 3-ish.
Okay.
Um, but so yeah, we're just the game's mostly done in terms of gameplay at this point, and then we're gonna like build out expansions for it. Obviously, it's very Pokemon-y expandable game.
Okay. So, and we'll go back to the
Yeah.
Pokemon stuff. There are cards, as you said, in this
Yep.
game, and usually when a card is involved in a board game or just a card game itself, it's there to induce randomness to the gameplay, so that no two sessions are exactly the same.
Mhm.
Some games don't have cards, but they are different because the players have control over making the gameplay itself different. So games like that would be like Risk, or
Hmm.
as I said before, Stratego, and things like that. So what are your cards used for? Now I know you said
Hmm.
that your cards are the robots themselves,
Hmm.
but it looks like there's more than just robot cards.
No, there's actually, yeah, there's pretty much just cards for each robot, and those are the only cards in the game. They're used mostly for information's sake. So it's all public info. Your opponent can see them. You can see them. Um, they're actually tarot sized, so they're pretty big, so they're easy to read. And there is a draft mode in the game where you can take the cards and turn them face down and shuffle them together and like dole out teams for you and your opponent. So that's actually, I guess that's like the only part where the cards themselves are utilized for randomness. Other than that, the only like random aspects of the game are with the six-sided dice, and that's
Okay.
what are used in combat.
All right. Let me pull up the cards that the people watching can see it. So we have the cards on screen here, and we're
Here,
trying
I
trying
present
to
you the
hold it.
cards.
There we go. They're being presented. Okay, so you said that all the robots are the cards themselves, and
Yep.
it's there for public information so that other players can sort of take a look at
Hmm.
the robots and what their exact stats are
Yep.
in order to figure out how they want to proceed with engaging that
Hmm.
player.
Yep.
So these cards, is it that you have a pool of these cards and players are going to be grabbing from this pool the exact robots that they want? I know you mentioned
Hmm.
that there's a random one in the draft mode, but
Hmm.
in a typical game, is it so much that you can pick and choose which robots you want to work with?
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of like it's all. It follows the same philosophy as like a deck building card game, like your Magics and Pokemon and stuff. So you actually just choose the robots that you like and assemble a team of like 5 basic robots, and then combine the guys you want to become. So yeah,
Okay.
and then you just bring them into you just like play against your opponent and see how well your team does. And if you don't like it, you can switch between them.
All right.
Um,
Is there just one copy of a specific robot, or
in the base game, yeah, there's one copy of each robot, and there are 90 robots.
okay? So how do you handle something where two players want to utilize the same robot?
They could both look at the same card, or they could both buy a copy of the
Oh,
game. Yeah. So
okay.
it's kind of, yeah. So it's that sort of thing.
So because it's public information, it's not that ownership of the card is ownership of the robot. It's just the card is there for anyone to reference, and
Yeah.
you can still own that robot.
You could still like, because there's also only one piece per robot too. So you would have to like be a little bit creative if two people wanted to use the same robot. But yeah, it's also, it encourages people to buy more copies of the game. It's because yeah, it's like a deck building, almost like a card game.
Okay.
So
So is there possibly plans to have just purchasing the deck, or
mhm.
do players have to purchase the entire game board itself with some, like, for instance, the game board
We
that was shown
definitely,
before?
yeah, we definitely have plans to do kind of expansion content like that, where we'll release like small boxes that have like reprints of certain robots, or like little packages that just have copies of like certain robots that are in the box and things like that, along with like other new content.
So the robots stand up.
Yeah,
What do you call those?
standees.
Standees, along with their cards.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That sounds pretty cool. All right. So now let's pull it back. I'm gonna switch back to the game board.
I also forgot to mention one really
Yep.
important thing about the game.
Is this about the cards, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So there are 5 different kinds of robots in the game: assault, evasive, guard, intel, and support. They're color coded. It spells Aegis. So all of the robots in the game fall under one of those 5 classes of robot.
Oh, that
Yeah,
sounds
so
like a very important thing.
So yeah,
Is that the Pokemon element?
it's a little bit like the Magic element. Is like
Oh,
there's 5 colors
okay.
in Magic, so there's 5 different types of robots. They all function very differently as classes, and then there's different robots under each class. So you have some guard type robots. They're all green, but some of them will be focused more on defending, or other ones will be focused on like heavy tank bombardment and things like that.
Oh.
So yeah, that's it's not just like 80, 90 willy-nilly robots that are all completely unique snowflakes. There are like classes and subclasses to each thing, so you kind of know if your opponent has a team of like all A-class robots, you'll kind of know exactly what they're doing. They're gonna run up and punch you in the face because they assault.
Okay. All right.
So
So we have the letters. So did you go over each one? So you said A is assault. What is the
evasive,
evasive for E? Okay.
and then guard,
Guard. All right, I'm guessing those are the defenders.
Yep, defenders.
All right.
Intel, they stop your opponents from doing stuff. Like
Alright.
like the control your robots, they take away your opponent's resources and stop them from moving. And then support guys keep the rest of your team running. Um, and they like with heals and buffs and things like that, and like super long range attacks.
All right, this is already sounding pretty awesome.
Yeah, I usually
I'm
mention
liking
that the
this.
first thing when somebody asks me about the game, but
All right, so I'm going to switch back to the game
Yeah.
board. Okay, so, and we don't have to necessarily talk
Yeah.
about the game board, but what I want to get at is let's talk about these subset of games that you're sort of borrowing elements from.
oh, absolutely.
So Pokemon.
So the cool thing about Aegis has a really like distinct art style, even though it's a game about robots. It's it borrows a lot more from like Fooly Cooly and Gurren Lagann with like the cartoony style rather than like your Gundams or your Mech Warriors. So a lot of the base level small robots kind of have this like really cute aspect to them, and they'll have like these really unique silhouettes, and they're kind of like they actually look like robot Pokemon. But then as you combine them together and you get the bigger and larger forms, they start looking more like what you're used to in like your your Gao Gaigar and your Gundams and like the really awesome badass robots.
Okay, so how do you go about combining robots together? What does that look like physically?
So all combined robots in the game are also unique, and they all have their own card and their own piece.
Oh, okay. All right.
And and the way you combine is you have to have robots of different classes. So you have an A type and an E type, and you can combine them together, make an AE type.
All right.
And then you'll have like a specific type, like an AE robot, and we have like an AEG robot, an A.E.G.I. robot,
Oh,
and
wow.
like then they're like Aegis class robots that are all 5 robots combined on your team if they're like compatible.
Okay, so you have a card and a standee dedicated for every
Combined.
combination
Yes.
that a player could come up with.
Yeah.
So they could do like an E and an S,
Yep.
and there'll be one dedicated to that. All right, so the moment that they combine, they'll just, I guess, either swap out their standee piece.
Yep. So yeah, you have to in order to combine in the game itself, it's pretty simple. You just have 2 robots next to each other, and you pay an amount of energy that's usually on the combined robot
Yep.
card, and then you just take the 2 pieces off the board, you put the new one on the board where one of them was standing.
Is this akin to like evolving in Pokemon? It sounds
It's a little
it.
bit like evolving in Pokemon. You'll
Yeah.
especially see that in the aesthetic. Like there's these certain types of robots in the game where like the really small version will be like dude with sword, and then like the level 2 will be like dude with like bigger sword, and then like level 3 will be like really awesome dude with like armor and sword. And so like you can kind of slightly see this aesthetic evolution with some other robots, and it kind of does feel a lot like Pokemon. And then of course the game is infinitely expandable, so like you said, there's an ES robot in the game, and we can introduce more ES robots as time goes on that are different. Like in the game, I think there are like 2 or 3 A.E.G.I. robots. So like, but they're
Okay.
completely unique. One is like a guy that pushes robots around, while the other one is a more of just like a punchy, explodey attack defense guy.
Okay, so not only do you have a dedicated robot standee and card for a particular letter combination,
Yep.
or class combination, you also have multiple variations
Yep.
for the same class or letter combination.
Yep. And it kind of comes down to like, so if you have like a tiny guy and his name is Arc, there'll be like an A.G. guy that'll be named Arc, but there might also be an A.G. guy named like Axis. So it's kind of like when you combine your robots up, you match the names and the letters. So you'll see like a level 1 Arc, a level 2 letter Arc, and a 3 letter Arc will be kind of like aesthetically tied, and that's kind of like how we keep the robots of different classes different, because like an Axis will look different from an Arc, which will look different from like an Arrows, and of course all the robots in each class start with the appropriate letter. So like all the G guys start with G and all the E guys start with E.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So for the resource, now I'm a little curious on this. Actually, before I get into that, so
Mhm.
you said you start off the game with 5
Yeah.
robots. All right. And then you can combine them. What happens after you combine them? Now you're down to 4 robots. Yep. Can you then replace that opening slot, or because you have a combo piece?
Generally speaking, all the combined robots in the game are more powerful, more versatile, or both. And when combined robots enter the battlefield, when you combine, they'll usually have some sort of super awesome special effect that happens just because you combined.
Okay.
So like knowing like when and where to combine on the board is like a valuable tactical thing in the game. So even though like you'll lose a guy in like some energy production, you don't really need that energy anyway because now you're down to 4, so you don't need as much energy. But uh, combining is important. I forget what your question was.
Uh, Deployment. So
Oh, so no,
the actual
you don't get
numbers
to
of bots.
you don't get to replace them, but yeah, the combined robots are generally cool enough that you don't need to. So
Okay. All right.
but it's not to say that you should always combine or you should never combine. It's all about reading the situation of the actual game
Yep.
that you're playing. That's why no game of Aegis is the same, because
Uh,
but you always have to know exactly when to combine, because combining is really the only way you can change your strategy in the middle of battle. Because
Okay.
you start with 5 guys and you can't do anything with them other than combine them together. So say if your opponent's hiding behind a wall, none of your guys can shoot behind a wall. Well, you combine into a guy that can shoot behind a wall, and now you're just you put more eggs into a basket because now you have 4 guys, but you've also changed your strategy to something more optimum to taking on your opponent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about so after they've combined and you notice that the opponent is making some sort of tactical move where you need to get an extra robot on the field? Can you decombine or devolve?
Oh, once you combine, it's totally a commitment. You can't decombine. It keeps the game moving fast, and
Okay. All
so
right.
if you like make a really critical error, the game's gonna be over in like 5 to 10 minutes anyway, and you'll just play again and not make the critical error.
Okay.
So yeah,
All right.
that's so yeah. If we had a decombining, the game would go from like 15 to 25 minutes to like a half hour to like 45 minutes. We've tried it. It's just
Okay.
like a lot of dirtling, and we wanted to keep the game like
All right.
that.
So for those purposes, as well as for the opposite, not having as many robots, you compensate for that by making the combination effect and the bot itself
Hmm.
more powerful.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds pretty cool. All right, so the energy.
Hmm.
How is it that is there a struggle, some sort of struggle between the players in order to gain more energy or lose more energy? Is there a way, because the energy
Hmm.
itself is a resource? It sounds like
Yep.
it's a resource of the game. Is there a way to acquire more of this resource?
Some robots that you can combine into actually give you a net positive of energy. So sometimes you can actually combine and lose a guy, but end up with more energy. But the way energy ties into the game, aside from how it's like the main resource, is if you can reduce your opponent's energy production to below 5, they lose. So that can change who you want to target. Like you can, like maybe you want to target your opponents like battery robots that are giving them lots of energy but otherwise aren't really doing anything, or do you target your opponent's offensive robots that aren't giving them much energy at all but they're kicking your butt? So that's kind of like how energy plays into like the active decision making while you're playing the game.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So the resource is tied directly with
the robots.
the robots that you deploy.
Yep.
All right. Is there a way for a player to swap robots on the field?
Not during gameplay itself, but like the main kind of tournament format for the game is you have 7 basic robots and you choose 5 before the round starts, but then you have like a sideboard of 2. So like between rounds you could switch out.
Okay. All
Yeah, so
right.
that's like that.
So kind of like deck building, as you said.
Mhm.
Uh, you sort of choose your robots, and that's how
Mhm.
you're going to uh, invest in your
Like,
winning
yep,
strategy for the game itself. And then because the goal is to have this game operate in a two out best of 3, best of 5, etc. type of scenario, you want the adjustment to come in on game 2, and then the
yes,
adjustment to game 3 if it gets to that point.
yep, exactly.
Okay, yeah. All right, that
Yeah.
sounds pretty cool. Uh, this looks like a very interesting game. I'm a big fan of robots and
Mhm.
putting them together and like things like Mech Warrior and things of that
Yep.
nature. Uh, Big fan of that. So this sounds like it's right up my alley.
Yep, we've been around the block a few times. We go to PAX East every year, Boston Festival of Indie Games. We've been to Gen Con 2 years in a row now,
Okay.
and a whole bunch of other things around like New England. We've also been to like Board Game Geek Con in Texas. So yeah, if you want to ever find us at a convention, it's all you have to do is basically just follow us on social media or our website, and we'll tell you when we go to things.
Okay.
And if you want to try the game out. But yeah, the game should be hitting Kickstarter soon. And actually, the really relevant thing is you can play the game on Tabletop Simulator. We have a Tabletop Simulator demo available on our website at
Oh.
zephyrworkshop.com. So if you have like Tabletop Simulator on Steam, you can kind of play a digital version of Aegis.
And I'm not too familiar with tabletop. I do know what it does, but does it allow for multiplayer?
It does, yeah.
Is it local or does it?
It's all online, yeah. Tabletop Simulator is actually like the coolest thing on the planet.
Okay, so it's online multiplayer.
Yeah, you can do online multiplayer Aegis right now if you go to our website and get the demo. Or if you ever want to challenge us to a game, all you have to do is contact us somehow. It's like, hey, I want to play Aegis. And we'll
Okay.
totally play a game with Aegis. So we'll play a game of Aegis with you on Tabletop Sim.
Okay, so for the viewers, could you just reiterate where they can find more information about Zephyr Workshop or Aegis?
Mhm.
Just plug in whatever social media
Yep.
website stuff.
Oh
they
yeah,
wanna
so
do.
you want to go to zephyrworkshop.com. That's our main page. You'll find like our blog posts and updates there. But we have a Twitter Zephyr_workshop, and then our main Facebook page, which is really our main channel for contacting people and advertising things, is facebook.com/Project Aegis, and you'll find our page there. We're almost at like 1,000 likes or something. And so yeah, just check us out, and it's gonna be exciting.
And finally, you did mention Kickstarter, so could you talk a little bit about your Kickstarter, or it hasn't launched yet, right?
We did a Kickstarter last year.
Okay.
It was through a publisher. We got a lot of money, but there were like some things wrong with the campaign. It didn't like fire off as good as it should have. So now we're just redoing it, and we're just like retooling the last few things and we're making a nicer video and putting a panache on a few assets, and we're just going to be going up on Kickstarter soon.
Okay, and the Kickstarter will be listed as well.
It'll be under Aegis, and we'll do a blast on every single thing. So if you follow our like newsletter, our Facebook, our Twitter, anything, you'll know when the Kickstarter goes live. So
yeah, I'm familiar with the Kickstarter process.
Oh yeah.
People tend to get sick of you after like week 1.
Oh yeah, I know. That's the worst part because week 1 is I could talk for a million years about Kickstarter. It was really awesome learning process the first time.
It is a learning process the first time. That is true. Okay, this is just Johnny from the Geek Down. Once again, I'm here with Breeze from Zephyr Workshop, and he talked about his game A.E.G.I.S. It's a board game with robots. It sounds awesome. And stay tuned for more at Boston Fig 2017.